Hi, everybody. So today we're going to talk about the foster care system. This is very, very close to me. I've been in the foster care system since I was 13. I was also when I was like very young, an infant. It's been a really interesting experience, and I've learned a lot from it. I've also seen firsthand, and by other people, like it says it right here, the harsh realities of the foster care system, and it's definitely a broken system, like most systems in America. I'm really excited to share this with you guys, and I'm not going to go too deep into like my personal experience, but so I hope everyone can take away something from this. Does anybody like have a gist, I guess, of the foster care system, or like what they think of it, or any ideas that like you can type it, you can say it really quick, like before we go further, that we're gonna watch a video. Does anybody know anybody in the foster care system? Or is this like a brand new, like I don't know what I'm really walking into?
I don't really know like in-depth stuff about the foster care system, just like what's portrayed on media and stuff. But I do have a cousin who's adopted, but like I don't know that much about her experience of just being a foster kid.
It's kind of like it's interesting because I think sometimes foster kids kind of like live in this world where it's just a bunch, like like everybody would know about it. And honestly, it was until I came to UConn when I realized that like not a lot of people, like, because it's just not like something, again, it's portrayed in the media, but it's not something that like a lot of people really dive into, which is understandable. So thank you for that. Here's some facts. I was going to write a bunch, but I didn't thought that was just like kind of annoying. I'm going to just read these down here. 1 in 5 foster children will become homeless after the age of 18. Only half will be employed at the age of 24. Less than 3% will earn a college degree. And then 71% of young women will be pregnant by age 21. And on personal account, I know many of my foster friends that became pregnant and are pregnant or had babies. And then 1 in 4 will experience PTSD. Does anybody have any thoughts about this or insights or anything about these facts? Are they surprising? I don't know.
The less than 3% is really horrifying. It's like not, I don't want to say it's not surprising because the system is essentially, from what I'm gathering, is sort of set up to fail them. So, they're obviously not given resources in order to earn a college degree, but it's just hard to see it put in fruition.
I definitely agree with you, like 100%. The point that really stuck out to me was that it's like it's set up to be like that, and it's hard because it really is. I emphasize this to the students that I mentor in high school. They're not in college, but that like moving around, you're constantly moved from home to home. You won't find a stable school system. So it's hard to even want to really like engage in school when you're never at the same school for maybe longer than like 3 months, and that's literally the reality of it. Also, just going to college, like nobody is really encouraging you to go to college. DCF doesn't necessarily put that as a priority. It's really survival and living and being safe rather than those kind of aspirations. And also there's just like education inequality, which we kind of talked about last week, that comes into play. So there's a lot of different factors. It really is a system that's set up, and I try to emphasize that to my students to make them realize we can't just be numbers. We need to be more than 3 or less than 3, like 2.5%, I believe is the actual number.
I think what's so surprising about the graduation rate being less than 3% is the fact that I think only 10% of foster students pursue higher education at four-year institutions. I feel that the problem is retention. I don't know if it's just, I think there's a bigger problem that lies outside of recruitment, but also retention is an issue, because if we started with 10%, why is it that it's sinking below half of that? I think that's just really interesting. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of resources on campus.
I also think that number, I agree. Definitely, it's tricky because I think that number itself also, like 10%, that's not enough. That's not nearly enough foster kids that should even go to college. So I think minimizing that number again after college, though this is just me, like how I think about it, and everybody can have different perspectives. I think having that instability throughout your high school career and then going to college, it doesn't set you up for for you to actually graduate. So I see a lot of the issues of what happens when you're like going through that high school, middle school, elementary experience, and then you're going to college, and then again the lack of resources that combine. I think it's just like perpetuating a bad cycle of like dropping out, and again, not being able to graduate. So we're gonna watch this quick video, and I'm just gonna start it. I really like this guy. Like, I want to meet him in person, so bad. Seems like a very resilient being.
I first entered foster care at I found myself adopted at the age of 9. So I remember walking into the courtroom and the judge smiling at me, asking me a very important question at the age of 9. And the question was, did I want to be adopted? And I wanted to say no, but I was so afraid of what that no would mean that I said yes. And unfortunately, it was a pretty abusive adoption. I found myself not being able to participate in kind of the holidays, not being able to be part of that forever family idea, right? And so by the age of 13, I was couch surfing quite a bit until I was able to re-enter foster care. And when I re-entered foster care, the entire conversation was about how was it that I was going to survive after foster care? What would happen when I aged out? 23,000 young people have a similar story where they turn 18 or 21, depending on the state that they're in, and they have to figure out how is it that they're going to be completely self-sufficient. I think every day people make choices about other people's lives. And when it comes down to being a young person in foster care, before you are 18, every single choice is being made for you. And we see the results, right? We see 23,000 young people age out of the foster care system who 20% will end up experiencing homelessness within the first 2 years. We see 3% being able to get a bachelor's degree. And we see almost 50% of young people underemployed. Part of being able to define your own story, being able to define your own journey, is that you really start to be empowered to take the actions that you feel are appropriate for your life. For me, I was fortunate that when I was 15, I was able to participate in financial literacy programs. I was fortunate enough to be in a work to learn program where I got to have a job, practice what money management looked like, went to asset trainings, which were these once a month trainings on how to buy a car, how to lease an apartment. And these things really equip me to be ready for life after foster care. But not every single young person gets that. And that's why our commitment of action is about supporting young people with a coaching platform on how is it that they can get from being in foster care to life after foster care. Many systems around the country have a social worker leading the case plan, leading what will happen in a young person's life. And we need young people to be involved in what will happen to them. When we think so much about nonprofits and what it means to be in service to the people that we serve, too many times people come to the table thinking about how is it that they can help. But think of us as not about saying, how can we help? It's really looking at the individual and saying, you are whole and you are complete. And how is it that the folks around you can support you and coach you through some of the obstacles that they may have a little bit of knowledge on, but at the end of the day, the young person at the center is the only person who has to live with these decisions for the rest of their life. Think of us as an online platform that allows young people to create a transition plan where they are thinking about what is it that they want to accomplish, whether that's a 2-year college, whether it's 4-year, what type of job, car, etc., and empowers young people to build their own personal advisory board of already trusted adults in their lives and people who are working within the foster care system. Together, they all work to create a transition plan where a young person identifies what is it that they want after high school? What is it that they want after foster care? They get to set goals, action steps, be able to access resources on the platform, and be able to watch content that helps them think through what might life look like after foster care. At the end of the day, all the research and everything that we know to be true about humanity is that the connection between humans is what really supports folks in their healing, what really positions folks to develop new abilities, to position them to thrive. And so when I think about mentorship, I think about how might we continue to make sure that young people are connected with those adults who can see their needs, can see how they can get involved and be there for them.
Okay, so that was Sixto canceled. And that was his story and also his insight. So I particularly like this video because it emphasizes the importance for mentoring, connections, resources, which is I instantly kind of thought of this club. You know, we want to create a community where even if you're a foster student, you're not independent student, like it literally whatever story, experience, or lack thereof one has had, we want you know, a community to be able to support others, um, you know, through anything. I try not to like single any kind of or create like a label for like who we support and who we don't, because I feel like we all just collectively can support each other without that label. This is basically like what impact does this leave on our foster youth? And he shared a story, which honestly is a very repetitive story, not of like his, but you know, it's seen in a lot of foster youth in Connecticut. And also, I do want to make a point that um, the foster care systems are different all in every state, vastly different. I know in Florida, it's a very poor system compared to Connecticut. So keeping that in mind, that also some of these vary on intensity and severity depending on obviously like even the town that you live in, but even the state, which is something I'm currently learning more about, and it's very interesting. So overall lack of education, tying it back to the video, not like, especially afterwards. And he was, you know, basically saying that after 18, you just have to start, you know, basically figure out how to do everything on your own, and be self-sufficient. And so, unfortunately, if education is not a priority for our foster youth, then it's again, like I kind of said before, that post-secondary education is definitely again 10%, that's, you know, an overall statistic, but seeing that in like actual, like with actual people, like it's very unlikely for foster youth to have post-secondary education, let alone a good education throughout their lives. Lack of care, resources, community, connection, and also just care on a literal survival level. um, you know, it's interesting because I think foster care, a lot of times people may think, you know, you're going to this loving home for this family, and that is, you know, there are some foster youth that's, you know, the case. um, Unfortunately, on the other hand, it's also, there's a lot of, and I forgot the statistic, that after you become homeless, but there's also statistics about when you're in foster care, it's also likely that, you know, like not likely, but you can also be homeless and in foster care. So, and then poor relationships, which that's kind of explainable. Housing and food insecurity, again, homelessness being one of them, and just, you know, food also kind of ties along with that. Trauma, PTSD, and that can be due to various reasons, from neglect and abuse to just having inconsistencies in one's life. It's very hard, I find, in my students, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but it's hard for my students to be able to trust me, and I found that, and like I obviously literally understand that, because, you know, when you have all these inconsistencies in your life with adults, with the social worker, changing social workers, you know, like I know a lot of kids that there's change, and within 3 months they change like 5 times, and that's your legal guardian. So that definitely brings a lot of feelings of trauma, um, and powerlessness overall. As Sixto explained, you know, it's possible for you to lose your voice when people are making decisions for you, and very monumental decisions, such as where you're going to live, even down to if you're going to live. And that sounds very dramatic, but it's, again, the truth of the foster care system. On the other hand, I kind of want to talk about that, although there are, you know, these truths that lie within it, that are very like hard to, they may be hard to grasp, and they may be scary. There's also a lot of benefits, and I'll kind of go into that soon, but just as there are, like, you know, disadvantages, there's also a lot of benefits I definitely don't want to forget about and not appreciate. So in college, and I'm really thankful that Bree brought this up earlier, because kind of saying, like, you know, emphasizing it's, you know, retention and the struggle that, thereof. And that in college, I think a lot, and these are just some of the issues, there's a lot more that we could go over. Um, but independency, where I think that's more of, and just literally being independent, again, self-sufficient, So that's increased, especially in Connecticut. I know how the system works is you go into a chat program, and it looks differently for everyone, but for the most part, your social worker and you like lose more contact. That's if your social worker stay in contact with you. Not all of them, like they might reach out like once every couple months. But it gets very tricky. Like you're a lot more alone than one would be if you're in the foster care system as a youth and not. It's called they call them transitioning adults in Connecticut. Homelessness, that was an issue previously, but in college, especially during COVID, I think overall we're just seeing a lot of housing displacement, and not even foster students, just a lot more people becoming or um, will be homeless soon. So that's definitely something to have on our radars. And then mental health. And again, this is for like dynamic for everybody. I don't think this is just foster kids. This is everybody and anybody can experience this, especially during COVID. Lack of resources and financial instability. And one of the things, this is when I'm going to start talking about this, that DCF, it's one of an advantage for some, but they will pay for your college, and that's like amazing, and that's great. And they give you stipends, and that's if they choose to do so. So DCF doesn't have to give you the money to go to college. So usually you have to have good behavior. Good behavior, what your social workers see as good behavior, and you need to have good grades and stuff like that for them to be able to support you. But if they don't, it can be like you pay 75%, they'll pay 25%. Like they really get to pick and choose who they want to give access to. Okay. Oh, I just saw your message, Bree. Can you elaborate on that? Because I love this. I love what you said.
Yeah, which message? I'm sorry.
Oh, the
Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been using the chat and I was like, maybe she just can't see it. But, okay. Oh, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed how the presenter of that video, he was talking about, I look crazy like this. I love how he was distinguishing the difference between helping and supporting, because I feel that with individuals in any situation, like just any individual, run-of-the-mill person, doesn't have to be foster care. Sometimes when people offer us help, we tend to put up this wall, or it's like kind of like a rose with the thorns, and like if someone even hints at you struggling, you're like, no, like I don't need it, like I don't need help. And I know like I'm like that a lot. I'm very stubborn. It's my essential flaw. It's wonderful. But I'm a super stubborn person. And if you're like me, when someone says the word help, you retract and you go into your shell. And then you're thinking, oh, I'm a burden. Oh, I'm weak. You start thinking all these things about yourself because people try to offer you help. And I feel that when people, this is a very small change in language, but when I feel the word is support is more promising, because support, it allows people to perpetuate that kindness and continue sticking to their word, because there's a difference between helping someone like, oh, I'm going to the soup kitchen for a day to help, and then you go back to your normal life and you never go back to the soup kitchen to help. You're not supporting, you're helping. It's kind of, if you want to draw the parallel to anti-racism versus non-racism, anti-racism when you're doing the work, that is support. Non-racism is when you're, believing in the ideals, and that's a great thing, and that's help. So I feel that there's varying levels, and even though basically they're synonyms, they're like the same thing, I just feel that for people who are in a rut, whether it be mental health or just maybe you're struggling in class or your grades are slipping, you don't want to hear the word help, because it makes you sometimes, I can't speak for everyone, but sometimes that word can make you feel helpless because those words are literally the same word. But I feel like support, it's like no one says, I feel supportless right now. Like no one says that ever, but when people say support, it's just, I feel like it means so much more to the heart, because it's like, oh, you're gonna stick around, you're gonna be here for the long haul. So I really like that he said that. I didn't really think of that until he vocalized that. So I thought it was just a really good point to make. And I feel that people should be more conscious of the language that they're using, especially with people who are going through something. And now we're all going through something. So I feel that help is not enough,
support is needed regardless.
I totally agree that like the difference in help and support, even though like it's only like it's basically the same word, it has a major difference. And even how it plays out, I agree with you that support is, I feel like, on for the long term, it's riddled with commitment, whereas I feel like help, again, is more of just that temporary. I like how you said they'll like, oh, go to the soup kitchen once and then go back to your normal life type of thing. So I definitely agree with you. So like, I guess to go off of that, like how can we support our students, or even just people right now? Like, how do we support? Because we, like, everybody's going through something right now. How can we do that? Any ideas?
Yeah, I'm Kyle, by the way. And this kind of relates to what you were saying, but like on like an individual level, you can just be there for someone as like a friend in that supportive system, which relates to like this idea of like being a white savior, which is something that you were bringing up, where like these people will go to like something like Africa, where there's like a whole stigmatism around it, and they're just there to like help them, but it's more just for them to get something out of it and to feel a certain way, and then they just leave, and it doesn't build the relationship. And building relationships, as you said, is like really important, specifically to foster children. So like being able to build a relationship where there's a back and forth, so there's like an idea of reciprocity, and like you're getting something from helping them. So like if you're going to be an actual friend or be supportive, then they should be giving you something as well. And that doesn't have to be like, oh, like I need you to teach me something. It's just like you're also getting a friendship out of being there for them.
Thank you for sharing. So like what stuck out to me the most was like when you said like just help. Like I think a lot of times, this is just like personally, but I think a lot of times I tend to think on more like a policy level, and kind of like, what can we do, and like all this with whatever. But you're so right. Literally just being there for someone, and again, not necessarily having to like give them like, I guess, like teach them something, or like literally give them something like materialistic. But like, I'm just gonna ask another question kind of going off of that. Like, what what do you think is the need right now? Because personally, me as a friend, like just trying to always just like have like be active listening, and caring and compassionate and having empathy. But like, what do you think like some of the needs are? I don't know. Like, this is just more out of curiosity, how like other people see like how to support their friends. That's a weird question. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just like say the question again, like the last part. Just
It's a very weird question. This is literally just out of curiosity, but like how, or more just like, I guess, like how do you like support, like you specifically, like support your friends or family or etc., or anybody like during this time, kind of like, I know you went into it, but like would more like, I guess, oh, this sounds like such a weird question. Now it doesn't make sense now that I'm saying it out loud.
it's like how do I like specifically support my friends when they're going through something, and like how do I like define that like relationship of giving back?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more just because like I kind of like, I'm more taking this as advice, to be honest, just because it's definitely, COVID is definitely a difficult time, so kind of just like developing other perspectives and ideas.
Yeah. So like the reason I just thought of like the whole relationship building is because like with the foster care system, it sounds like one of the main things that these people are like missing is like a relationship that they can like rely on. So if you can, like, obviously this doesn't work for everyone because not everyone can make that commitment to just have build like a new relationship with someone. But like if you can make a relationship with someone in the foster care system and be there for them as a friend, then can be really good. Um, to your question, I don't know, like being there is like emotional support. So like if they need to talk to you about something, then you can be there for them. But maybe in order to make it so like they don't feel like they're just a burden to you, like you can also share like something that's like stressing you out emotionally, stuff like that. So then like they're there for there too, and then they can contribute something, which is like, I'm not a foster care kid, so I can't say, but in environment where everyone is there to either support you or to ignore you, if they're able to communicate with you and give something to you, then that might be beneficial, and like feel good for them.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm definitely, I don't want to like, yeah, I'm just processing that. I'm taking that in. Thank you again for sharing. And thank you for being here today. I hope everyone has a good week, exams or not. And if you do have exams, I'm sending you all the positive energy, and you're going to do great. You're doing great, sweetie. I
Well,
don't
here's my
think,
question.
yeah.
Just about like the foster care system, like I understand that like it's like a really tough situation where like it's not properly organized and like people go into the wrong homes and people like sign up to be foster care to like be foster parents for the wrong reasons because I think they get like paid like or something like that and that's why they want to do it. But I think it's really interesting how like I've heard that it's actually really hard to adopt children. Like they have like what's it, just like rules and regulations where like if a gay couple wants to adopt a child, like they can't, and they make it really hard for them to like stay in a home, which I don't understand. Like if the system is so broken, why don't you want kids out of it? Why wouldn't you make it easier? Not easier, because obviously you need to make sure like they're actual like good people before you just give them a child. But even so, isn't it better than like moving like a 10-year-old every couple of months?
Mhm.
Just like that part really just doesn't make sense to me.
I definitely, honestly, I think I want to look more into that because I knew that as an overarching like problem, and it's gotten better, but it's literally even early 2000s, like um, I don't know when it became legalized, but I remember reading about it and I was like, it really wasn't that long ago, and even in some states, it's a lot more difficult, more southern states, to be honest, but yeah, that's definitely an issue. And I think, oh my gosh, I just had an idea in my head. I think adopting, like, it's difficult. It can be difficult, and but it's also so expensive, which is also another thing that makes it a lot more difficult. It's very expensive to adopt a child, and for people that have great intentions but literally can't afford it, that's also like kind of what factors into like what makes it also so difficult to adopt a child in the United States. So yeah, I'm at the same point you are. I don't necessarily, I do understand, but I also don't understand. I think by if we were to change some policies and laws, even it could help a lot. It could help a lot of children. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, have a great week. I guess we're just gonna, yep. Bye.